No, I saw it.
Should be a thing.
I'd like to thank everybody to our first meeting of the year. Happy New Year, everyone. January meeting of the PAB is beginning. We'll start with introductions. And
I'm Dora Settle. I am the Northwest Council seat on the board.
Keith Patterson, Alliance.
Great evening, Arlene Brown, and I am on the Alliance seat also. And thank you all so much for taking the time to come and spend time with us and find out what we're doing and to help us do this work. And healthy New Year to all of you.
Larry Knox, board chair and Northeast seat.
William Clark, mayor's appointee and mayor's appointee.
Okay, Yvonne Wilson, I'm a council seat appointee. Happy New Year to everybody.
Daniel Cadet, PAB Alliance 14.
Sherry Walker Carr, interim executive director.
All right, thanks. And we'll be getting staff reports. We'll meet some of the staff when they do the reports a little bit later. Approval of meeting minutes. These were emailed out a couple of times. I had one change. Anybody else have any other changes before I get to mine? I was at the end, coming back from executive session, we did announce a vote on a legal matter, unanimous vote on a legal matter, just changing that at the end for when we came back from executive session. Any other changes, additions, subtractions?
If no one has any additions or corrections, I move that the minutes be accepted with the change.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. All right, staff report.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go through and get some highlights from the different departments. So Dolores Ivy Page is here as the Director of Case Management. They continue to work and take in complaints. The monthly report will be posted very soon. It's complete, but there were 15 reports this month. And on average, the case managers are managing around 60 cases. And so although you hear so many cases coming in, they're constantly managing those other cases. So those are updates for now. And we're going to be hiring a bilingual case manager, and interviews will be starting next week for that. So we're excited about that. Okay, so that's Dolores' report. Dejan Hall is here as the Director of Policy and Oversight. Some updates from there is that the team has submitted the right to know proposal legislation to City Council. Both the Policy and Oversight team and City Council are waiting for the official response from Chief Smith. It was due December 27th, so we're waiting for that. And as soon as we get that information back, President Melendez said he will give us next steps as we move this process forward. Right. Natalie Banks is here as a Director of Public Affairs and Community Engagement. One of the things that we have found is that we needed to do some tweaking to some of the job descriptions to be more representative of what the job and the functions of the position are. And so she's worked diligently on making some updates, and we'll be resubmitting that revised description for the case, the community engagement manager to HR for approval, and get the right person in there. We're also excited that we're making a hiring decision next week on the community engagement specialist position. Finalized work with the right to know proposal with the policy and oversight team, and we'll start working with the policy team on the upcoming protest policy. So Natalie is here. Good. Operations. You don't recognize it with the mask. I think one of the Joel will be given the one report. So we will continue working with the neighborhood development and the real estate division and the law department to identify a future location. Kudos to Rosabelle Antonetti, who is the director of operations, who's been working really hard on this, and we'll continue working till we can find the right place for the PAB in the future, in the near future. So she's also been working with CyberWorks. This is really exciting to digitize charter mandated trainings for the PAB so that when new employees and new people come in, they can watch it online. It's a lot of time taken out to sit in trainings, and so a lot of work is being done for that. We're going to be working with the police department regarding putting a proposal together for certain mandated training, typically an RPD training that'll be done for spring of 24. And the same thing, again, Rosabelle is looking for ways to get these trainings available so we can continue to take them, have people come in without having to schedule so many people and bring in new trainers all the time. So we're working with the city on charter mandated trainings that can be provided by the city itself. So that's exciting. And next week, I think the PAB board will receive training from NACO for the board training.
And for those who might not know, what does NACO stand for?
I don't know. What is it?
Oh, I think I know. Yeah, National. Oh, you do know. Come on.
I do. I thought you might want National Association of Civilian Oversight and Law Enforcement. And I've been here a year. When I came in last year, I was thrust into the budget season, and so here we are again, getting ready to put together another budget for the upcoming year. And so that's operation. Rosabelle Antonetti is here. Anything else? Okay.
I do have a question. Matt.
Yes.
Just for the webmaster and the training manager, were we for hiring for those positions?
Where are we for hiring for those positions?
So, we did interview several candidates for the professional training position, and so that right there is currently on hold. Looking into, I did identify several candidates for the webmaster position, and so those are going to be scheduled within the next several weeks. And we do have one candidate that will be interviewed for the language access coordinator. We did not get a lot of applications for that one. And so we may have to repost for the language access coordinator. In the meantime, though, I will continue my role in, with regard to training, anything IT and then language access. Just covering those, anything that needs to be covered under those umbrellas. I will continue until we hire into those positions.
Okay. Is there a time frame for the development manager, or just when that would?
At this point, no.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So with regard to investigations, again, a press release did go out on December 26th. The Police Accountability Board is conducting an independent investigation into the shooting death of a 40-year-old Rochester resident that occurred on December 24th. The investigation was initiated on December 24th by the investigations team. So again, we're asking the public, we're asking if anybody has any information regarding this incident, to please visit rockpab.org to file a report, or call our hotline 428-9999. And if you have information, to upload it to rockpab.wetransfer, WETRANSFER.com. So we are doing that investigation. We also were surprised that starting actually on the 26th, that we were removed from the staff duty listserv. So that's been made known, and we're working to get reinstated in that. I don't know if you have any additional information on that.
Indication that's supposed to change, but I guess we'll find out tomorrow or Monday to see if we're back on.
And again, would you explain what that means? 'Cause-
Was there a reason?
I don't have a reason. We don't know if it was a misunderstanding. I don't have a reason.
But could you explain to the public what it is that we've been removed from?
I don't have the details, so you want to explain this?
Staff duty listserv.
Just Liz, can you come up just so?
Sure. The staff duty listserv is a real-time email list that goes out on Rochester police activity and incidents within the city. It goes to all the media outlets, and I believe it goes to council and people that should know these things. For example, the Christmas Eve shooting that was sent out, our investigation teams responded on the scene, and there was a particular officer there that was one of the officers that had requested that we be removed. So I know that the request came from Lieutenant Bello and Chief Smith that we be removed. That was their decision, and we weren't given a reason
They
why.
didn't give a reason why.
No.
So what are we gonna do about that?
We followed up on it, so
Yeah,
ladies.
I filed with council and, expressed, we should have the same access, our staff, as any other city employee or the media. So it's supposed to be addressed and never supposed to be added back. So we'll wait for confirmation from staff. This was a conversation today. So wait for confirmation from staff to see if we're gonna be added back in. That will escalate, but, there's no reason we shouldn't be on there.
Okay, because that could hinder the investigations, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll find out about the stuff, but we should find out about the same time as everybody else, and there shouldn't be a delay,
Right.
from our staff being able to make choices if they want.
Okay, so the other thing is, the panel will be continue to review cases, and, we do have the disciplinary matrix, and so we will be making recommendations based on that disciplinary matrix. We haven't done that in the past, but we will be doing that going forward. The other thing is the new business today, so we'll cover that under new business in terms of retention policy, and there will be some legal matters that the board will be addressing in executive session. That's all.
Any questions for Sherry?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know about staff, but anybody having issues accessing their email when they're not on the city Wi-Fi?
That was a problem. They have been working on it, because I think, you had that when we were here. So they've been working on it. Are you still having that issue? Because they did send out a workaround.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I found the workaround. So I wondering if staff had the same problem too. Or they just probably on no city Wi-Fi, so they can do it.
Yeah, I don't know that staff has had it if we're not on the city.
Okay.
I didn't have a problem with the email, but I have a problem. It keeps telling me that it needs to be, the software needs to be updated. And then you click on it, it doesn't get updated. So,
Right.
all right, so, they wanted it to be urgent. So I sent an email to them, let them know ASAP. And they sent something back by the voicemail. So I sent it again. Okay, so I don't know.
I was having that problem, but I found out that if you bring your laptop in at the meeting and get on the city's network, it automatically updates, but it doesn't update from your personal Wi-Fi system.
But
So
it did the last time.
Yeah, okay. Well, mine has stopped. Yeah, mine had done it
Okay,
initially, then
okay.
it stopped. So every meeting I bring it in, I turn it on. I just got 2 updates just now
Okay,
but I have to bring it here, physically be
Right.
here for it to update.
okay.
We can maybe, Victoria, that's something you can work on with Yvonne, to figure that out. You need to be able to access this if you're here or not here, or if you're at home. So it might be an IT issue, but we can have Victoria follow with you after the meeting.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, try not to be. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Sherry.
I'm sorry, I did have a question, and it's kind of related because I'm not on the city computer every day, And every now and then, there's urgent things that come through that I don't get if I'm out of town or whatever. Is there any kind of a text system that we can put in place so that when there's something urgent, members get a text to know that they need to get to their city-issued laptop in order to?
Well, we use Teams. I don't know if you have Teams, but if it's on your personal, I mean, just to say, look, we wouldn't convey any confidential information, but just say, take a look at your, at your email, or if you want to give your cell phone number, if you already have it to Victoria, she can send you a text from our.
Yeah, it'll make it a lot easier if I got a text, because my phone is usually with me, but.
Yeah, anybody who wants information, text to them. We just, again, it won't be confidential. We'll say, hey, take a look at your email. But just give it to Victoria, whatever your cell phone number is that you want the text to go to.
Okay, I'll
You can do that. I think she would probably like that so that she can make
It'll make
sure
life
that
a lot
people are
easier.
looking at the emails.
Yes.
Yeah, you can do that.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll start with the chair's report then. I was neglectful in saying, we have one board member missing, Mary Wambach. She did call in, wasn't gonna be able to make it, so as an excused absence. So I'm sure Mary's watching us online, but yeah, she did let us know she wouldn't be able to make it this month. So for our chair's report, it's a new year. I think we're starting off the agency in a stronger spot than we did a year ago. A lot of that's, majority of that's due to the work of our staff this year and under Sherry's leadership and the new leaders that have come in and our leaders that are still here. But just really happy that we're going into a stronger place for the community. And this is the budget time also, so we want to, budget's not being voted on next month anytime too soon, but we are putting together our, ideas of what we want the agency to look like over the next year. Obviously, there was, the conversation about moving. And we're going to have at some point this year a new executive director. So there's going to be change happening, but I think change in a good direction. And I do want to, as we're going to the new year, thank the staff and Sherry for their work over the past year to get the agency to a stronger spot along with our new board members that have joined us this past year. I do want to say again, as I've said, I think every board meeting, we still do have one opening on the board, for the East seat. Again, if you know anybody that lives in the East District and is interested in supporting the work, please encourage them to apply. It's coming up on a year that seat has been open, and openings should not ever be that long on a board this important. And there is a need to have every part of the city represented in. And the East seat, has been open coming up on a year. And last, there is City Council had their leadership elections earlier in the week. So Woman Melendez is still president. New vice president now, Lachey Harris. So when there was, when I first came on board, I set conversations with all the city council members, talk with them about the work, and obviously throughout the year, sometimes we engage them, but I'm going to do it with any other board members, have relationships, especially if you're appointed by a council member or just in the community. Encourage them to reach out to those council members to let them know about the work, encourage them to support, work with, Sherry and the staff to make sure we're up to date on what we're doing. But I want to make sure, and as a new council member too, making sure that they're engaged on what we're doing. And I encourage the community to do the same to make sure they're supporting us as we go into this new year. Anything else any questions for me? All right. Committee reports. Training, I think you kind of went into that, with NACO, the training that there was an email that went out. I did do a text to remind folks to check that one. But it was earlier today, but we're trying to do a training next week to get everybody closer up to speed to be able to take part in the panel discussions. And then anything else for training that we missed? I think so. Search committee. Oh, yes, Yvonne.
So is that part of the training that the new
Yes.
we're supposed to get?
Yep.
Not the NACO?
Well, the NACO, that is some, from your question from before about, I think our last meeting about some of the new trainings for the board, that's some of the beginnings of that.
Oh, that's the beginning of it.
Yeah, the stuff that you haven't had a chance to go through yet.
Okay.
And there's an option to do that remotely, so coming in as an issue that, we could do that online. And some good updates for the search committee.
Yeah, so we have made an offer to contract with a search firm and it is now awaiting approval from the city council. So we're hoping that process will begin very soon.
And this search is for?
The executive director, that we're hiring a firm to conduct the search.
No, I'm just saying, but this search is for?
Correct.
All right, that's the point.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the only person that the board hires directly.
Oh, no, we were searching before for the building, right? So I'm just
Oh,
want
I
to
see.
make sure this is,
Yeah,
this right here is for, not for the building, correct?
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, council should be voting on that this month, and then once that's official, we'll start having, further conversations with them, and part of that,
For the public.
part of that is them coming in person, talking to the public, talking to the alliance, talking to staff, and filling some big shoes with Sherry, with what she's done the past year. Any questions on the search committee or training? All right, any old business? All right, new business, retention policy.
Yeah, so that was sent out to you. Hopefully you had a chance to read it. Let me just see if there's any questions. I mean, certainly I'm here, Elizabeth is here, but this is how long we're going to retain information and the confidentiality. So Elizabeth, get ready for questions on it.
I have a question. I assume it is, but I just want to sort of check that the material is indexed in such a way so that, it can be flagged or found in terms of, like, assuming we're keeping it in case it becomes relevant to additional issues, right, to additional cases. Is that correct?
I think the information that hasn't attached itself to cases.
Well, any of the information, I mean, is it?
Yes, the information that we have would be attached to cases. If it's not attached to the case, we don't keep it.
What I mean is, say there's an incident with Officer X, okay? And it doesn't rise to anything, but the disciplinary matrix, is partly staggered by how many times something happens, right? So say Officer X comes up again, is the material, like, in other words, so you're able to know from the way the material stored that Officer X has previous.
Right, that is tracked through our IC.
Okay,
Thank you. And any other evidence, I mean, in our evidence room, those kinds of things, we have our digital forensic over here. I mean, they're gonna keep real close tabs on that and track of that, so, yeah.
I kind of had like a parallel, go ahead. Just because at one point you did an attach to a panel review, person within 6 months following conclusion of the review, if that information, isn't directly attached to a complaint. But let's say if it's policy work or if we're trying to see patterns, not specific to a person, how, I don't know, like, I know you can't keep everything all the time, but how do we know if something might be relative to a pattern or other things that might be for the policy team in that 6 month time period?
So the name of an officer isn't necessarily data. So the data that we retain would be body worn camera footage, incident reports, documents that we retain. A particular officer, if he's in our system, he or she is in our system, that name will remain in our system and be searchable. But it is the documentation that we may have obtained. Usually if it hasn't attached itself to investigation, then it usually would have come from a reporter anyhow. Once we start the investigative process is when we involve our PD.
So your question is about policy. So if we're looking at patterns, like several people have complained for this thing and we're, so Dijon, do you want to address that?
Yeah, very briefly, although not necessarily germane to the investigative rule edition that's being proposed tonight, Typically, when there are a number of cases that arise that are very similar, with the same sort of action, something that Elizabeth's team will notice, and Elizabeth and I engage in conversation about what sort of policy work should be done, if any at all. So, an example of this is right sizing, something we've briefed more previously. It has come up a number of times. Complaints, Elizabeth has brought it to my attention. Additionally, that's the process that comes about with how things come from investigations. Somebody mentioned.
So probably a termination, if something is no longer relevant, like hopefully policy would have been someone involved in that conversation. Okay.
Okay. So, my question is that after we retain the body camera information, and we do find out that there's a trend, say the officer had a previous thing even prior to that, will we be able to walk, like you said, kind of walk with the officer, like, maybe on a monthly basis or 6 months from now, or do we have to wait till he or she do something again before we can bring up the issue?
I am not certain I understand that.
I'm not sure.
Okay, if Officer X has recently was what's the word, when profiled somebody, okay, and he did not act accordingly, and his body camera showed that, right? So then, after 10 years, you all are saying we can go back if they do it again. What I'm trying to say is between that 10-year period, okay, on a 6-month basis or something like that, are we going to be able to monitor, or I say work with that officer to make sure, or is he going to get training? Well, how are we going to follow up with that particular incident?
Okay, so if there is an officer that does something that violates the general orders or the rules, we would, and if the body worn camera footage that we retain is longer than 10 years. And if there's another infraction during that time, we would definitely note that he or she had a previous infraction. I'm not sure I understand the question. Walk with the
Yeah, we're not following them. We're not monitoring them.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if something else comes up, we do an investigation and we find out, oh, this happened before, then all this is gonna go to the panel for review. But we're not in a position to monitor what.
So we're not able to do that, is what you're trying to say. So the officer can get in trouble today, and then 6 months later, right? If we don't know whether or not he was reprimanded or whatever, or she has done, then they can do the same thing again, right? And it basically, what are we gonna do about it?
Well, even if the officer is reprimanded, they can essentially repeat the same behavior. It's up to our PD to terminate an officer who engages in repeatedly that behavior. As the appellate court noted, we can make recommendations as the executive director can still make recommendations for discipline to the board, and the board could definitely make the recommendations to Chief Smith, but they no longer have the weight. Chief Smith is no longer obligated to apply our recommendations. Hopefully he will, especially if there's an officer who is doing repeated activity.
Yeah, that ties into the discipline matrix that you put together.
Yes, so I think the spirit of your question is it's really how do we prevent repeated behavior?
Yes.
And I think inherent in our disciplinary matrix is we keep track of prior violations and we recommend increased discipline where there is repeated infractions. So we may not be able to walk through it, but we do keep track of when those violations happen and increase the severity of what we recommend for this.
Now, my question is, I know that we sent it to RPD, the matrix. Has the chief responded? Have they accepted the matrix, or are we still in limbo?
I would have to go back and look at the notes and I'll provide that to you.
Okay.
And I think I'd like to add that from a community perspective, and we've talked about this as an agency, the power has always lied with the community. And so if we make recommendations, the board makes recommendations, our responsibility is to make those recommendations public. Our responsibility is to make the chief's decisions also public, and the public, the community can decide for themselves. So PAB has made these recommendations, and these are the amount of recommendations that the chief has followed or not followed. I have a problem with that as a taxpaying citizen of the city of Rochester. And now I need to go talk to my council person. I need to do this. So we want to make sure we're doing community engagement work. The public is aware of our recommendations. The public is aware of what the chief is doing or not doing. And then the public has and always has, whether we had disciplinary power or not, the public has always had the power to make change and create change in the community. And so we will continue to do that work.
Okay.
Here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? All right, so everybody's had a chance to read through this. Actually, I did have one question, I'm sorry. Just for when you put, what were some of the models or other, like, what was some of the data and best practices that went into putting this together? Like, is there
It's actually our PD's own body worn camera model manual. The training manual has retention policy for body worn camera footage that we apply.
Okay. Cool. All right, any other questions? All right, so, yeah.
I do have one question. Excuse me. For the proposed policy for,
That's not,
that's not it?
not up yet.
Not up yet?
It's just for your information on it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we're just on this, much smaller one.
This is what.
That's what we're talking about. Okay, understood.
Oh, I'm sorry, the levels, right? What determines a level?
The matrix.
That's from the matrix, the
Yeah.
disciplinary matrix.
It's on the matrix of what?
The matrix was submitted, here's a copy of it probably in your notebook, but.
Right here?
Yeah, it's more outlined in the notebook.
Yeah, this,
Okay.
yeah, this is more detailed, but yeah, this is where that comes from. Mhm.
All right.
One other question, that I don't know if there's an answer to this that you might not know right away, but I remember when we went to the INACO training, when it came to body worn camera footage, there was, right now, I think it's 30 seconds. Like if they turn it on, it goes back to the past 30 seconds. Do we know what the default is for the cameras that we have now? Like, could it go back further than 30 seconds? I know there's an assumption that, it's 30 seconds, but some of them have technology, it could be a minute, minute and a half. Not related to this directly, but we're talking about body cam footage.
There shouldn't be a longer pause than, actually,
It's like 20 seconds.
it's 30 seconds. Yeah, it
But-
should.
Well, we don't-
be longer.
But
But the question is the equipment that the RPD has, what capability does it have in terms of how long previously it could be?
Like, could it be a minute or half or a minute?
In other words, different cameras have different
Right.
technologies.
This one is silent for like 20 or 30 seconds. When they turn it on, there's a silence part. So when you say go back, you mean go back.
But something to research, right? But it came up in the conference with that's the default setting.
Mhm.
But there was some technologies that were set where the default could be, well, we'll make it so you can go back a minute or a minute and a half.
Okay.
So oftentimes departments just default to the shortest time period of going back. But in reality, there could be some, I don't know if our system is one of them, where they could go back a minute or a minute and a half if they just change, I don't know, whatever in the programming or in the system. So I don't know
Before
if
they
that's,
turn it on,
and right now it goes back 30 seconds or 20 seconds, but it could possibly go back a minute.
prior to them turning it on.
Yeah,
Okay.
but maybe, I don't know if that's the case
So
or not.
we'll
Yeah.
have to research.
Yeah,
I don't
it's-
have it.
This example that came up in one of the workshops was, somebody looked on page 87 of whatever
Okay.
manual, was like, oh, look, it could be longer.
Mm.
And it just never happened. I mean, it was, but that's not directly related to this, but we're talking about body worn camera footage, so.
Since y'all brought that up, how long does the tape or whatever it is last before it expires?
I mean, I think we have it, it's digital, so it's.
Right. So it's like your phone doesn't, and like if I recorded, I could just keep it on as long as I.
I'm asking a question. I drove a school bus and we had cameras, okay? And they only lasted for 14 days, and that was also digital.
Yeah,
So that's the question I'm trying to ask. Does the body camera tape last forever? Or is there a certain time that it's gonna expire? That's what I'm
Well, it
asking.
has to because you have the retention period.
Right, so
Okay.
it's not, I think maybe it's easier to use a file rather than a tape.
Yeah.
Right, and
Correct.
that file is retained by RPD and will be retained by us.
Oh, okay, and but it can be deleted, correct?
That'd be really bad.
Not just saying.
But, yeah, that would be a major issue.
I'm just, okay, all right,
Yeah,
okay,
go
okay,
through,
okay, okay.
a process to be, you can't just go like, whoops. Yeah.
Oh, you can?
Well, that'd be a problem.
Right. There's supposed to be a safeguard in there.
Yeah. I mean, oftentimes the problem, it's a matter of are they turning it on or not in enough
That's the
time,
problem.
you know?
They forget to turn it on.
So, okay, so in that process, is there a way that we will know whether or not, okay, I guess this is too much for us to do, but who inspects the cameras, who determines all that? You know, is that gonna be, are we gonna know that this camera was inspected on the 5th of January and we found that it was working correctly so that they can't come back and say, well, this camera wasn't really working. So is that in some type of working that we can come up with, or is that in our power to do that or no?
That's probably up to the staff to follow up. I think that's a good question. I mean, there's accreditation and the camera, when the council bought the cameras, there were certain standards the cameras had to keep up to.
Of course.
So if there's an excuse for an officer, I thought I hit my switch and it didn't come on, I guess we something to find out, but we should know, well, you know, the cameras are inspected every 3 months or 6 months to make sure they're operating properly.
And there's an excuse on that. They can only use that excuse so often because that also becomes one of these discipline things for the matrix is when they forget to turn their camera on. If they repeatedly do it and they repeatedly do it when there is
By
a
that
serious
time,
case.
some people could have been and got killed or
Exactly.
over and over again.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
okay.
That's exactly why.
All right.
That they get, you need to turn your camera on. Third time, it goes down and the discipline becomes more serious because it's like, okay, are you being too willful in not turning your camera on? Then, well, you're not going to have a job or you're going to have some serious penalty. Because when it gets to like 4 or 5, you're looking at not having a job.
So that's one of the things, and this is beyond my scope of
I only know from
information,
UCL.
but our digital forensic analysts, that's why they need download, is to analyze the information to see if there are gaps, to see what the time, that's the purpose of us wanting download, so they can do that level of analysis to the extent that they can.
But we have to follow up with some of those questions. I mean, for this particular policy, it's not really, but yeah, I think that's.
But that needs to be known.
Right.
Yep. All right, so voting on the retention policy,
Move it.
right? Moved by Mr. Clark. Second by Daniel and Reverend Patterson. All in favor? All right, any other new business? Make a motion to go into executive session to discuss a potential legal matter or decision the board may take.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will come back if there is a vote. I will announce that at the end of, at the end of executive session. Sure. All right, we are back from executive session. There were 3 votes in executive session in regards to legal decisions the board decided to take. The votes on the first 2 matters were unanimous, and the vote on the third matter was 6-1. There's no other business in executive session. Call this meeting to an end.